Hello everyone, this is Liwi Model. This is a freezer. Yeah, an actual freezer with food in there. So, why is there a freezer in one of my videos? Pretty simple, I'm not at home today. What I have to show you today is actually too large to fit at home once we assemble what could resemble a layout. So I'm at one of my friend's place today to show you this. This is a William electric train. It is not a diesel locomotive, but it's 3-rail, all gauge, and the prototype that it represents is the General Electric E60 prototype. The product code for this, unfortunately, if I show you the end of the box, the label has been ripped out long ago. From the research I did, it could potentially be an E60-502. However, don't quote me on this because there were several versions of this. Now this version that you see here is actually pretty significant in terms of both for Williams and also for the whole O-gauge 3-rail thing, because it was the first one that was made not by Lionel, which you might have heard of. And this particular version is the third generation of that model. The first generation was just basically a kit that you had to build together with Lionel parts, I'm not kidding. The second version showed the fully ready to roll version by Williams because it was a commercial success. And this version is actually dating somewhere in the 1980s. Unlike the previous generation, it only has one of the two bogies which is powered, but it does have limited sound capacity, and I hope that we will be able to test this today. Also today on the menu, I'm going to introduce you to the 3-rail O-gauge system, because we never saw this on the channel, and I think it's pretty interesting. So shall we open this up? So first thing I gotta say, these things are much heavier than the 00 stuff, HO stuff, or N stuff I usually do. And because I don't want to scratch my friend's freezer, we're gonna use this paper towel right here to look at the logo. So here it is. It is pretty large and also beefy and heavy. There we go, let's put that here. So first of all, let's look at what came with this. So I got this again at the Expo-Train train fair in Laval, and I purchased this from these fellows here. mmartminiature.com. They do say online sales only, but they were present at that show. And I want to say a big shout out to these guys because I mean, they were really nice people, and we discussed for a long time about various things, and they actually were able to explain me a lot of things about O-gauge. So if you want to go on their website there, I'm going to put a link down in the description if you just want to click on it just to see what they have. I have not gone myself on their website, and I'm not being paid to tell you that, but I'm just saying these are nice guys, and I recommend it. So what did we have in there? A limited 1-year warranty card. Actually got 2 of them, so I guess there was one for Canada and one for the US that was common back then. Yeah, we don't really care about that. Here we go. Second one, the powered unit operating instructions. So the Williams engine has been greased and tested before leaving the factory. Something tells me that that grease is pretty old. So I'm going to try to oil it up a bit before we do those running tests. So what do we have in there? We do have an electronic horn, which I'm a bit I'm a bit scared to test, but we'll do it. And the other side is empty. Okay, about the model itself. Well, first of all, working pantograph. How nice is that? So both of them are working. Let's look at it. So the shell itself is made out of plastic. The bogie themselves, they're made out of metal. So if we take a look at it, you can see that this is a fairly large model compared to everything else I reviewed so far. So what you have on this, like that Amtrak livery here, this is printed. This here, it does show a bit because of the reflection of the light, but that's a sticker. But all of that stuff here, that's all printed on it. The handrails, they are separately fitted, and they look chunky, but I think that because this is such a large model, this might be normal. So it does have number boards, which I remember seeing that they should actually light up. It does have a nice big beefy coupler. On that side, what we have, similar thing. So if we took a look on the roof here, we got one separately fitted horn. There's not that much details, but I want to remind you that this is not a new model, since it was the first one made in O-gauge 3-rail. So if we take a close look at the pantograph, so the way they work, there's a spring here that actually bring this closer, and that's how they're able to stay. And a little metal thing there, clip it into place for when you want to have it down. So I told you this is an old model. From what I read, it dates back from the early 1970s for the tooling, but this model dates back sometimes in the 1980s. Okay, if we go down a bit, you can see that we have very large bogie. Like, this is my hand right here, so it's almost as long as my hand. It is all made of, it's all made of die-cast metal. Feels very, very heavy. And this thing here is actually what touches the third rail that's in the middle. We're gonna look at the track pretty soon. So if we look at the wheel here, see this here, there's like a small tiny little carbon buildup. To be honest, I already ran this just because it was so unusual, I wanted to. And this thing was like super shiny before. And this is out of like about 10 minutes of running. This is already happening. Like, you have a carbon buildup that's there. So yep. This is the non-powered bogie here. If you look at this, all the wheels, they are freewheeling. They do have some cogs here, but they're not they're not connected to anything. Now the bogie is actually this is actually a Coco locomotive. So the bogie, they have 3 axles. The axles in the middle here is flangeless to make sure that this is going to run on Lionel tracks, and Lionel tracks used to have a fairly tight curve radius. So the way that those couplers work here, they would clip like this, and you could release them by lifting this button here. Sorry, there you go. So let's look at the other bogie. Like this one here, you can clearly see that there is more cogs. So this one is powered. Obviously this one is freewheeling. Also the same idea with the roller in the middle here. And you have those cogs, which prevents this from going anywhere. What we see here is that you have traction tires on those 2 tires. Now about the whole setup, all the wheels, including the one with traction tires, they actually pick up. The center here is the return from the electricity that goes in the engine. So it is isolated from all the wheels. So in total, what we have a total of, I would say, 1, 2, 3, and 4 axle fully picking up, with those ones sometimes also picking up because of the insulation created by the traction tire, sometimes they will just, you know, run on the tracks, but the flanges can hit the metal tracks and everything. So anyway, I've talked about this for a while. Let's take a look at a 3-rail track from up close for you to understand better how this works. Now, the 3-rail tracks that we are going to use, they're not the classic ones that were made in the like 1960s, 1950s, 1970s, etc. They are actually more modern. This is what they look like. They have an included plastic road bed and it actually looks like normal tracks. They're made by MTH Electric Train. Now, MTH, from what I understand, they are still in business, but the company, it's not as active as it once used to be. But from what I understand, this you can still have. They're actually pretty well rated. And if you take a look on how they are made, there are no fish plates on top here. Okay, if I have like 2 pieces of tracks right here, they're just gonna go like directly one in the other. However, if you look underneath, you see that you have some contacts at both ends right here. And when you connect them, like this, okay, you can see that it makes contact from underneath. Also, to be able to make contact with a power supply, you see that you have this here. If you take a look right here, you see that there's a spacing here and here. So you would take one of these, okay, and slide it in there underneath. Now, to be able to do that, you would need to cut that little cutout thing here. I'm not gonna plug anything over here, so I'm not gonna cut this one, but on the layout that I've assembled, you are gonna see this. So, let's go build this up. And hopefully it's gonna run. Well, I know it will kind of do because I've already tested this, as you know. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I did assemble the layout here, but before we take a look at the layout, I just want to show you a bit how the 3-rail system works. So you saw how it was made underneath. Here, what we have, those 2 tracks here represent the same polarity. Okay, so this is alternative current, it is not direct current, so it actually doesn't work exactly the same way. However, there's many advantages of using a 3-rail system like this. First of all, you build whatever you want. You don't have to consider anything in the special loops you want to make, or having a shortcut between those 2 rails, because they are both going to be negative. It's not really negative, but that's the best way I can explain it and make it easy to understand. Now, this one here, if you want, that's going to be the return for the electricity. So it basically picks up from here and return it from the center. So even if you do a complete loop or anything, the center rail is always going to be in the center, and the 2 other ones are always going to be on each side. So you will never get a shortcut by building an improper way of setting up a layout, you know. So let me just plug this in. That's the cutout I was talking about. Here is my connector here. So this connector, the way it's made, these are simple twist lock. This is just an extension cord that I took from the dollar store that I could cut both ends, and then I can just put it in here and secure it like this. There you go, screwed in, and it's fairly solid once both sides are screwed in. Now, if I apply power on this, okay, it goes like this, you will see how much power is being applied through a little light bulb that's right here. Now, this thing is not connected yet, so that's why it's not doing anything right now. So let me just plug this in. There you go, it's fully plugged in. So now, this is actually a Lionel Expo-Train control unit. It is 40 watts, so for one locomotive like what I have right now, it's not a problem. They do make bigger ones. What I want you to see first is that we have a direction button here. We have a whistle button, which I'm not sure, but I think it might work with our locomotive. And we have a bell button. I don't think that locomotive is equipped with that. So let me just go power this up, and I'll give you an overall view of the layout. Hold on a sec, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've fully assembled the layout here, as previously said. I've also connected the power supply to the Elmenger X3 portable power station right here. Now this portable power station is able to give 550 watt with the power inverter, while this little controller here supports a maximum of 40, so it should have no problem managing this. Now what you can also see is that this power controller, again it's the 40 watt version, it is fully connected to this here, which is the connector. Now you will see on the connector right here, okay, there will be a light once I apply power to the tracks. Now without further ado, let's just turn this on. If you've noticed, there's no switch to say in which direction the locomotive is going to go. So the way this will work, I'm going to put some power, and I don't know which way it's going to go, but there is a direction button on that power supply. So as soon as it starts, if it goes in the wrong direction, I'm going to press it right away. Now the way this works, this is like very old technology. This locomotive is made so that the first time you apply power, normally it should go in a direction. Then if you press the direction button, it's going to go in neutral. And if you press the direction button again, it's going to go in the opposite direction. And if you press a fourth time on the direction button, it should go into neutral again. And then you press the direction button again, and then it goes in the other direction, and vice versa, vice versa. So let's hook this thing up. Once I'm gonna power the power station, you're gonna see this light is gonna turn on, and once I apply some power, you will see that light turning on. By the way, this locomotive is also equipped with lights, so even when the locomotive is in neutral, you can have the lights turned on. Okay, let's get this started without further ado. Okay, so the power supply is now powering on. If you hear a slight noise right now, this uses 40 watts. It's not that much, but it's still a lot more than what we were using in terms of electricity when we were looking at the N gauge engines and also the HO or the double O gauge engine. So this might not be the most recent version of this. The electronics in it actually needs some cooling, so that's why the fan is constantly running. A newer version of this exists with more efficient electronics. They don't require such an active cooling as this one. So let's get it started. Okay, so now the locomotive doesn't move, so it's probably neutral. Now let me press the direction button. There you go. That light is actually pretty bright, the one in the loco. Let's just try something for fun. Yep, that's a very bright light. It's one light bulb at each end. They are not LED, obviously, because this dates back from the probably second half of the 1980s. There is two incandescent bulbs at each end, so obviously no direction light. So let me press on the direction button. It should put the loco in neutral mode. So now the locomotive is in neutral mode. It is made in such a way that, whoop, what was that? No idea, but, oh, maybe that was the horn. So in this mode, the lights are on, but the engine doesn't work. So let me press on the direction button, it should start into the other direction. So if I put it in neutral again, let me just reframe this a bit. There you go. So if I put it in neutral again, I just need to press the direction button. So there you go. It's in neutral again. Let me just try the horn button and see if that was the horn. Yep. And it's quite noisy actually. I don't think the bell button does anything with this model. Okay, let's change the direction again. Now, in no way am I an O-gauge expert, but I figure that it takes some learning to get used to that direction thing if you are to do some shunting, so there's probably a learning curve over there. So let's just watch it run for a bit and then we'll wrap this up. So what do I think about the Williams electric train E60? Let me just start off by saying this is a very, very, very reliable model. As you've seen right here, this model was in its box for many decades. Now, when I ran it, those little roller here for the third rail, they were spark clean. Now they look like they got quite a bit of carbon builds up, but I've heard that this is mostly the way the system works. Now the three rail O gauge like this, I mean, it's still made, it still exists. This is usually very, very expensive stuff. In fact, when I was at the train show, I did not see anything, and I mean anything that was powered that was under $100 Canadian. This one, I paid $50 for it. So in terms of value here, I can't complain. Now this is a very old model in terms of tooling. It was actually the first one with using this system here, the three rail O gauge, that was made by a different company than the first company that made it, which was Lionel. So as such, you can't blame it for having very, very, very little detail. In fact, I have some end scale stuff which is way more detailed than this. However, it does have sound, as you've seen. I mean, I don't know how accurate that sound is though. It looks more like a PC speaker beep than anything else to me. It does have lighting. It's not directional lighting, but I mean, how low-tech this is, you know, these are features that I'm pretty sure when they were made were impressive for people. The fact that bogies are entirely, and I mean entirely, from here to here, built out of metal, is something that feels very, very, very nice. The plastic shell itself, I mean, yes, that's a sticker right here, and I'm pretty sure that this, if I leave it in the sun, it will change color, but I'm not gonna leave this in the sun, obviously. And you can also see that the window here on the box has been yellowed a bit from years of existing, but I mean, this still looks good, so that's good. There are a couple of separately fitted parts. You've got those handrails here, the horns, the pantograph. The pantograph are actually pretty nice. I know one of them popped up during the running session without me asking it to, but I mean, we don't know how much rattle this thing had made in the previous runs that we did. The only thing I'm not exactly sure I understand has nothing to do with this. It has something to do with the whole system. I know that, I mean, this is obviously DC. It's not the equivalent of DCC. I think they call it DCS for the 3-rail O gauge. But I mean, that the operations overall with the direction thing, that neutral, and then you're not exactly sure which direction it goes, or I find it a bit awkward to use. But I guess it might be because I'm not used to it. I'm used to having a much more simple DC powered stuff. Now, this thing does have its own advantage. Obviously, it's not as realistic because you have that third rail right here in the middle, but it does have a lot of advantage when you are building your layout. You don't have to worry about polarity. The center is always one of the polarity, and the outside is always another of the polarity. So you can do all the loops, turn back thing. I mean, you're never gonna short it out just by building it wrong. So in my mind, this model right here, I'm very happy I got this. Now, is it gonna be the most accurate? Obviously not. We can expect this to maybe be the beginning of something, because that's the first O gauge stuff I have. If you are interested in this, perhaps I can take a look at other O gauge stuff in 3-rail, now that you know what kind of equipment I have, and I might be able to go in that place again to do another review. So on that note, this was Leeway Model. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. If you have any comments about this model, if you want me to continue doing those reviews on 3-rail O gauge, just leave it down there, and depending on what type of feedback I have, I may decide to continue. Leeway Model out.